You replayed that conversation again last night. Not the whole thing, just one sentence you said in passing, the one nobody else noticed, the one that has been quietly rotating in your head for somewhere between 4 hours and 3 days. You analyzed the tone. You analyzed the pause before it. You constructed 7 alternate versions of yourself who said it slightly better. And then, after all of that, you still could not fall asleep because a new thread opened underneath the first one asking whether the analysis itself was making things worse. You do this with emails before you send them, with text messages after you send them, with decisions that were already made weeks ago. You research a small purchase for 2 hours, find the correct answer, and then keep researching, because somewhere inside you there is a quiet voice insisting that the moment you stop, something will be missed. People close to you have told you that you think too much. You smiled when they said it. You did not tell them that you already knew, that you have known since you were a child, that the loop has been running for so long you cannot remember what the room sounds like when it is quiet. You are not lazy, you are not indecisive. You are exhausted in a very specific way, and almost no one around you can name it correctly. What you are experiencing is not a character defect. It is a hardware configuration, and it has a name in clinical literature. Researchers describe it through several overlapping mechanisms, but the most relevant one is a hyperactive default mode network. The system in your brain responsible for self-referential simulation when no external task is loaded. In most people, this network quiets down when attention is directed outward. In yours, it idles at a much higher baseline, the way some engines refuse to drop below a certain RPM no matter how lightly you press the pedal. Layer on top of that something called post-event processing, a documented cognitive pattern where the brain compulsively reviews social and decisional inputs long after they are useful. Add low latent inhibition, which means your perceptual filter lets in more raw information than the average person, and the picture starts to clarify. You are not broken. You are running a sensitivity setting most nervous systems would burn out trying to handle. Evolution did not build this by accident. Somewhere in your ancestral line, the individuals who simulated outcomes obsessively, who replayed yesterday's hunt to learn from it, who pre-rehearsed tomorrow's conflict before walking into it, those people survived. They passed on the wiring. Your overthinking is the descendant of a survival instrument that once worked beautifully. The problem is not that the instrument exists. The problem is that the original environment had natural off switches. Predators left, food arrived, daylight ended. The modern environment has none of those. Your simulator now runs in a sealed room with the lights permanently on, asked to solve threats that no longer have a shape. Picture, for a moment, a chamber buried somewhere beneath the floor of your awareness. It is enormous, vaulted, lost in steam at the ceiling, and at its center stands a mechanical calculator the size of a cathedral. Not digital, mechanical, brass gears nested inside brass gears, rotating drums the size of trucks, paper tape spooling out in white rivers, pneumatic tubes crossing overhead, carrying glass capsules from one section to another. This machine was built long before you were old enough to consent to it. You have been operating it your entire adult life. In the center of the chamber there is a single chair bolted to the floor, and you're sitting in it. Levers surround you. Dials on the far wall measure variables you did not choose to track. Probability, social cost, regret index, risk of being misunderstood. Every time a small input arrives, something as ordinary as a question someone asked you in the hallway, you pull a lever and a pneumatic tube fires off, carrying that input deeper into the machine. 3 sub-calculations branch from it. Each of those spawns 3 more. Receipts print onto your lap. They stack to your chest. They reach your neck. The machine has already answered the original question 9 hours ago, but the printer keeps running because nobody told the printer to stop. High above you on a suspended catwalk, there is another version of you holding the original blueprint. The blueprint shows that this machine was designed for 1 calculation per query, not infinite recursion. A small component called the governor gear, the part meant to halt iteration once a usable answer is reached, is cracked. It has been cracked for years. And the detail you have never looked up long enough to notice is that the chamber has doors. It always had doors. They are painted the same color as the walls. The repair is not motivational. It is mechanical. You cannot think your way out of a thinking problem because the same machine that created it is the one you would be using. What you need instead is a sequence of physical interrupts that bypass the calculator entirely and force the nervous system back to the body, where decisions actually live. The first interrupt is the 72-second rule. When you notice a loop has started, set a literal timer for 72 seconds. During that window, you're allowed to think about the problem as hard as you want. When the timer ends, you write one sentence, just one, that captures the best answer your machine produced. Then the file closes. If the loop returns later, you reopen that same sentence. You do not start the calculation from zero. You're installing a base case into a recursive function that never had one. The second interrupt is the two-channel rule. Overthinking thrives on a single open channel, an unoccupied mind staring at an unoccupied environment. You do not need meditation for this. You need a low-grade physical task running in parallel. Wash a dish, walk a known route, fold laundry. Choose something so familiar that it requires no decision but occupies enough motor cortex to starve the simulator of fuel. Decisions that felt impossible at a desk often resolve themselves within 4 minutes of walking. The third interrupt is the somatic checkpoint. Once an hour, regardless of what is happening in your head, you stop and complete a 30-second body scan. Feet on the floor, shoulders down, 3 slow exhales longer than the inhales. This is not a wellness ritual, it is signal interruption. The vagus nerve sends an upstream message telling the prefrontal cortex that the immediate environment is safe, which lowers the urgency of the simulation at its source. The fourth and most overlooked is externalization. The calculator is loudest when its outputs stay inside the head. Speak the problem out loud to yourself, or write it in plain handwriting on paper. The moment a thought leaves the skull and becomes a physical object, its recursive power collapses. You will often discover that the thing terrifying you written down fits on a single line. None of these interrupts will work the first time you try them, and that is part of the design. The machine will resist. It has been your protector for decades. It believes that if it stops calculating, something will hurt you. It is wrong, but it is sincere, and it will only quiet down once it slowly learns that the doors of the chamber were never locked. There is one more layer to this though, and it is the layer almost no one talks about. Because once the calculator slows down, a second pattern emerges, the one that explains why people like you can analyze a decision flawlessly for weeks and still fail to move on it. That specific freeze has its own architecture, and the next video on screen takes you directly into it.